Hey guys, it's Alaija, aka Kingdom Babe here, and you're watching Surviving Solitude. Surviving Solitude is a series I created to help you understand and navigate your way through long seasons of solitude or short solitary moments in your life. What is solitude, you may ask? Solitude is the state or situation of being alone. And if you're not familiar with the word solitude, you're probably familiar with words like loneliness, isolation, withdrawal, separate or separated, seclusion, peace, freedom, and quarantine. Now, solitude can be a physical, mental, and spiritual experience. We can be physically isolated and separated from other people. We can be mentally isolated and alone in our own minds and thoughts. And we can be spiritually isolated and separated. Now, I know you're probably wondering, is solitude good or bad? And the answer to both of those questions is yes. It can be good and it can be bad. For example, loneliness and peace are two words that describe solitude. While loneliness focuses on more of a sad aspect of life, peace focuses on more of a freeing and accepting aspect of life. So someone can suffer from loneliness and solitude while somebody else experiences peace and solitude. Solitude can be a punishment or an imprisonment to some, while it's very peaceful and freeing to others. So, okay, I know what you're thinking. If we're alone and solitude means I'm cut off from everybody else, where is God in solitude? Does God exist in solitude? The answer is yes, God does exist in solitude. God is not confined by solitude. No matter how cut off and separated you are from society, solitude cannot make you cut off and unreachable to God. Sometimes a place of solitude is exactly where God can be found. As humans, we have limits and we have restrictions, but God doesn't. So to us, solitude might seem like a big deal, but to God, it's like, excuse me, I'm the Father, I'm everywhere, say less. Yes, there's no person on earth that is exempt from experiencing these kind of moments in life. Some people can find themselves simply tucked away by the moment of solitariness, and others might actually intentionally place themselves in a moment of solitariness. What makes people experience solitude? So basically, most of the time when you find yourself in solitude, the first reactions are fear and confusion. For many people, being alone can be very scary, while others are immediately struck with confusion trying to figure out what's going on and why they're alone. Some things that can make people kind of slip into these moments are loss of a loved one, rejection, sudden or drastic move or change, or a lack of knowledge in something. So when someone loses a loved one or someone passes away in your life, that's a very hard experience and something very hard to deal with. And it's hard for you to kind of readjust your life to going back to the way it was, going back to normal. And oftentimes you don't want to go out, you don't want to eat, you don't want to laugh, you don't want to talk. You kind of find yourself in a moment of solitude. Or people might notice that you are very standoffish, you're to yourself more. And this can happen after you lose a loved one. Rejection. After rejection, people often kind of close themselves off, either because they don't want to try again or because they've given up on trying in the first place. Whether it's from telling someone how you feel about them or being turned down by a job that you really wanted, rejection is a very hard thing to deal with sometimes. So that can also put people in a place to where they want to be alone and not deal with everybody else in society. Sudden and drastic changes in one's life can also have this effect. You know, back in the day when you was in school and the new girl came in and she just moved in town and she kind of just stays by herself. She's probably a little bit homesick and she doesn't know anybody. She doesn't really talk with anybody. She don't eat lunch with nobody. She don't play at recess with nobody. She's very to herself, quiet. You're trying to get her to be your friend. This is what I'm talking about. The sudden and drastic moves or changes in a person's life can make them kind of close off from the rest of the world and be in solitude. If they are missing a life they once had and now are trying to adjust to a life that they have now, it's kind of hard to now just be social and just be friendly and just be happy because you're still trying to get a grip on what's going on. You're trying to get a focus on what your life has just went through and encountered. And lastly, a lack of knowledge in something. If you don't know something, 9 times out of 10, you're probably not going to talk as much because you don't know what you're talking about. If you were to go to a foreign country right now and they spoke in their native language the entire time, you would probably find yourself somewhere in a corner trying to figure out what the heck is going on. Like, what are they saying? I don't know what it means. A lack of knowledge of something also can make people feel intimidated and feel like they're smaller than what they are. So they often kind of go off into their own little world and where they're familiar with things and go into solitude. Now, while people may go into solitude just naturally, some people intentionally force themselves into solitude. And some reasons why someone might do this is because of a breakup, betrayal, a traumatic experience while looking for spiritual awakening, or escape from daily routine. So after a breakup, trust me, you'll probably notice that someone is not coming out their room. They don't really want to talk. You have the really sad breakup people, or you have the people that were in a toxic relationship and could not wait to get out, and now they're focusing on doing themselves, and they really don't want the company. They just want to enjoy themselves. After a breakup, people might not want to be as social or as open to opening up to someone else again. Betrayal. Being betrayed or stabbed in the back is a very tough experience, because not only is it understanding and realization that someone that was close to you has betrayed you or stabbed you in the back, but your trust is shattered. Your trust being shattered makes you uneasy, and now it makes you close off from everybody else just as much as you close off from that initial person. This can also be another intentional solitude moment, a traumatic experience. So from car accident, plane accident, train accident, going through a traumatic experience not only shatters your life, but it's hard for you to get back on track with the world. You feel different. You look different. If you've been in an accident, you might have been paralyzed. You're probably bound to the wheelchair for the rest of your life, on medication for the rest of your life. You might see them just kind of to themselves. People that go through these kind of things that I named will intentionally close themselves off from the rest of the world because of something they've been through that was very hard to recover from or to continue on in life after dealing with. When people look for spiritual awakening, they also intentionally go into solitude. So when people are trying to get the rest of the world out of their head and just focus on God, you'll find them closing themselves off, taking time to be alone in the word or meditation or whatever it may be that they're doing. Religious reasons are a lot of reasons as to why people intentionally go into solitude, because they need a break from the rest of the world, and they need a break from the comments and opinions of other people and the influences and the infiltration of the words of other people. So a spiritual awakening or seeking for spiritual healing is also another reason why people intentionally go into solitude. And escape from daily routine is one of the biggest ones I think people do all the time. Whether you're a mom of 10 kids or you have 6 jobs, you're working from 9 to 5 and then from 5 to 9, it's one of those things to where, you're looking for a break from daily life. You're looking for something new, something to free you up. You've been going through life and kind of going with it as you wake up each day and do the same things over and over again. You might not like your job. You might not like always having to take care of somebody else. So now you are intentionally looking for that freedom, that peace, that quiet moment to yourself where you can just be yourself and not have to follow a routine. This is also another intentional solitude moment. I know that here in 2020, we all had to have a moment of solitude and experience that, whether we were in our own homes, whether we were on the front lines fighting and had to be away from our families. The doctors and nurses, public transportation people, there was a lot of things that were still going on, and there was a lot of restrictions that we were placed under. So this was a very hard time for a lot of people. I know it was hard for me. I thought it was going to be cool, but I wanted to find out that it wasn't cool, and I really hated it. But through this moment in my life, through this moment of being secluded from the world, through this moment of being shut off, shut down, and locked down, I learned some things, and I actually have a few tips for you guys. The first tip I have to get through solitude is to embrace it. Take in this alone time. You do not have to be bombarded or interrupted by daily life routine or people. Daydream, imagine, produce, pray, find yourself. There's so many different things you can do when you're alone. People that go into solitude have a better chance of being more creative because they have a little bit more freedom to focus on their own thoughts instead of the thoughts of other people or the distractions of the world. Our lives are full of the hustle and bustle of daily routine. So if you find yourself in a moment or a season of solitude, Try your best to embrace it. You might need it more than you know. The next tip I have is to be nice to yourself. In solitude, you are cut off from everyone else except for yourself. You still have to deal with yourself. So be nice, okay? You have to deal with you. So speak nicely to yourself. I know this might sound funny and weird, but I know for me, when I'm alone, I tend to sing to myself, or I talk to other things. Like if I'm walking past a rose bush, I'll talk to the rose bush. I'll talk to the birds in the trees. I know this seems really weird and awkward, because if you see somebody talking to themselves in the street, you're probably gonna be like, wow. But it really helps you along the way of being alone. Speak nice to yourself. Singing to myself is one of my favorite things to do. It helps me get through the moments where I feel alone, or I feel kind of intimidated by whatever, or overwhelmed by whatever I'm going through at the moment. Try to keep your mind as positive and open as you possibly can. Next tip I have is to find yourself. Find out who you really are when you take away the rest of the world. When the noise comes down and the dust finally settles, who are you? Solitude is the perfect time to work on your character and your attitude. Being in solitude will reveal the good and the bad about you. So take the time to embrace it, check yourself, and renew yourself. The next tip I have for you guys is to explore God. Like I said before, God is the only thing that is not confined by solitude. Sometimes God might call you into isolation to renew your spirit. God may also take away certain people, take away certain responsibilities in your daily life to help you get back on track. This is one of God's ways of helping you focus on His word, focus on yourself, and focus on your relationship with Him, is by placing you in a moment of solitude. So if you experience this moment of solitude, or if you find yourself in a moment of solitariness, go ahead and embrace it and thank God for it. If you focus on God in solitude, you can come out of it with so much more than you went into it with. And lastly, find balance. As I said before, solitude can be good and it can be bad. It can be bad if you take too much solitary time, because we are human beings and we're social by nature. God said when He made Adam that it's not good for him to be alone. But also, when Jesus used to go around and preach and talk and heal and deliver people and cast out demons, He also intentionally, there goes that intentional solitude again, He intentionally looked for times to be in solitude, pray, be alone, kind of get away from the loudness, get away from the crowds, because that is just as important and healthy to the mind, the body, and the spirit. Think of a time where you were overwhelmed and just tired from working, and be grateful for your moment of peace. A season of solitude might promote a season of growth that you didn't know you needed. And so guys, that's all of my tips that I have on how to deal with solitude. I hope this helped you guys out, and stay tuned for next week's episode of Surviving Solitude. I will be posting a new episode every Monday in October, so stay tuned and keep your eyes open for that. I love you guys so much. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and push the notification bell so you can be updated and alerted when I do post my new episode of Surviving Solitude. Until then, I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.